Assalamu alaikum. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillah. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Sayyidina Rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. It seems that last night I struck a nerve with many people about my comments on the etiquette of the masjid. So I was moving on, but then when I went home last night, I was thinking maybe I need to complete the story, inshallah, or complete. Welcome back. Umrah maqbula, inshallah. Did you make dua for everybody? Inshallah, it's accepted. Inshallah. I was thinking about you guys earlier, alhamdulillah. So one of the brothers came up and he said, what about the heels and the feet touching one another? And I demonstrated in a funny way to show you. So I want to teach you something that kind of shows you how the order of thinking goes when one analyzes a text. So this is sort of a little bit like a trade secret. I want to share with you how we do this and how we were trained as jurists and in the process of fatwa, etc. So the first thing is that there's a difference between the text being like a text from the Quran or a text from a hadith or a text from somebody like Abu Hanifa wrote something or Imam Shafi'i, a nas, a text. That's one thing. Then the second thing is I have to understand that text. So as Muslims, we don't do anything with the text. We preserve the text. We have no problem with the text. We transmit the text, even if the text has ambiguity, even if the text is false. As I was saying in one of the Jummah khutbahs, I think 2 Fridays ago, we keep the text and then we understand the text and then we have to apply the text to the current context. Okay, so keep these 3 things in mind. Imam al-Bukhari narrates a hadith that the Sahaba, first of all, before the Bukhari hadith, and forgive me if I'm going to spend a couple more minutes on this. I know it sounds very minute, but there is hopefully a hikmah, wisdom in sharing this with you. There is no doubt that the amount of hadith of the Prophet ﷺ telling us to straighten the lines, to stand shoulder to shoulder, to fill in the gap, suddul khalal, there's no doubt that this is all over the hadith literature. I mean, one can go as far as to say that this is something that is mutawatir, that this is something that was narrated in such a way that there is no question mark that this is part of how we are supposed to stand and pray. We have to form straight lines. To the point that the Prophet ﷺ would say that before the takbirat al-ihram, istawu, a'tadilu, tarasu, etc., etc. And the khulafa after him, radiyallahu anhum. Okay, so there's no doubt about that. Now, as I mentioned to you yesterday, the proper way of standing straight is that your feet are underneath your shoulder because that's how you stand straight. So if I told you qum, stand, the implication in that is that you stand straight, not that you stand crooked. That is just the mafhum, the understanding of the command to stand. Wa aqimis salah. Stand and establish the prayer. The language itself necessitates that you're going to stand straight, not that you're going to be like this. Even though you could say that I'm standing, but no one would stand like that. You don't do that. Imam al-Bukhari narrates a hadith in the Sahih, in Bukhari, that the companions stood, that their shoulders were touching each other, and that their heels were also touching each other. And Imam al-Bukhari narrates this hadith, وَكَانُوا الصَّحَابَةِ. The Sahaba radiallahu anhu used to do this, meaning that it was something that was done continually. But it was not something that was directly commanded by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So what do we call that? We call this a sunnah taqririyya, meaning that this is a sunnah that was affirmed, an act that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam accepted. Not a sunnah that he said to do. He didn't say to stand like that. But he saw the companions standing like that and he didn't say anything. And the Prophet ﷺ has to comment. If something is wrong, part of him being a prophet is he has to say that this is wrong. If he doesn't, then that means it's permissible. Okay, so that's the first. Now we have this text and now we have the actions, the continual action of the Sahaba. Now how do we apply that? Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani, one of the great commentators on Bukhari and also Imam al-Nawawi in other places in his fiqh works, he says, this is from the mubalagha, this is from the overdoing it of the companions in standing straight and filling in the gaps. So let me repeat to you this hadith in modern American English in a way that you can understand it. So I'm going to act like the companions, not that we're the companions, you know what I'm saying. We took this command from the Prophet so seriously, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that even our heels touched one another. You see how that's very different than me saying in order to stand straight, you must have your heels and your toes touch one another. There are two different understandings. So therefore, in understanding, now we have the text. Now in understanding the text, what we are seeing is that the primary way of fulfilling the obligation of standing straight is that we stand shoulder to shoulder. At the same time, we confirm that there is a tradition that the Sahaba used to touch their heels out of abundant cautiousness, but this is not a requirement for fulfilling the command of standing straight. Does that make sense? Okay. Now the context. Now let me tell you a little bit about what happens inside this person that's in front, this faqir. Wallahi, sometimes I'm miskeen. Let me tell you what happens inside me when I have to face the community. How many madhabs in Islam do we have? 4? At least Imam Rifai is a politician, right? He knows, right? He's going to always wiggle his way out. It's because he's a lawyer, mashallah. So over Islamic history, we have had over 85 madhabs. Today we have active 8 madhabs. There are the 4 Sunni madhabs in chronological orders. The madhab of Imam Abu Hanifa, Imam al-Azam radiallahu anhu, who technically was a tabi'i because he met 7 of the Sahaba. Following him is Imam Malik, the Imam of Al-Madinah. And then of course, Imam al-Shafi'i radiallahu anhu. And then Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal radiallahu anhu. These are the 4 Sunni madhabs. And then we have the Ibadis of Oman, the Sultanate of Oman, which is emerged from the Khawarij, but you know they've undone a lot of those things. But it is a madhab, and they have he's a very nice man, the Mufti. And then we have the Zahiri madhab, which is some of the followers in Algeria and Morocco and some elsewhere. And then we have the 2 Shia madhabs. The largest Shia madhab is the Ithna Ashari Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq alayhi salam. And then we have the Zaydi madhab of Yemen, the Houthis. I don't say that as in a political statement, but I'm identifying that the group in Yemen, the Houthis, they follow the Zaydi madhab of Islamic jurisprudence, of Shia Islamic jurisprudence. These are the 8 madhabs that we have active, but there's over 85. Now we have so many nations and races and backgrounds in our community, okay? So my job is to find the widest way possible to keep everyone happy. When you study Islamic law, you can only study one madhab in the beginning. You can't go to, if you go to a university, you can't go to multiple colleges at the same time. You have to major in something. Well, it's the same way for us. You enter into the seminary, you have to choose which madhab are you going to study. Over the course of studying the madhab over years and decades, you learn about the other madhab. But that's personal. So if you leave me by myself, I'm a Shafi'i. That's how I studied, that's how I taught, that's how I teach, that's what I do. But when somebody asks me a question, my job is not to give you what I do. My job is to observe what the community is doing and find the widest answer possible that will fulfill the current action that already exists. That's the job of the Mufti. So I look at the widest definition of Sunni Islam because this is our perspective. We're a Sunni masjid. So we have these 4 active madhahib. And as long as an opinion exists that is agreeing to a certain context, I say, you know, Imam so-and-so said this is permissible, it's fine. We did that when we had the problem in building A with the mihrab and the people praying in front of the Imam. We talked about service animals coming to the mosque. We had some people that had service animals in the past. We allowed that following the madhab of Imam Malik. The people from the Montgomery County Muslim MCMF, I always get the acronym wrong, but you know, our brothers from the Montgomery County Muslim Foundation, they asked me once about the Qurbani. They didn't find any Muslims to distribute it to. The majority opinion says that the Qurbani can only be for Muslims, but there is a dissenting opinion in the Hanafi madhab that you can give it to non-Muslims, so I gave it and everyone got so upset and a brother left from the masjid and stuff like that. But my job is not to tell you what I want to do. My job is to find an answer that works for our context, as long as I have not violated the text and an orthodox understanding of the text. Is that clear? Okay, so this was my fiqh minute. This is not the khatira, by the way. I still have more to say. Okay? So I hope now we've agreed about the etiquette of praying. And the reason I did this over-exaggeration yesterday was to show you that obviously in our context with this limited space, we're not going to pray like that. If the brother or sister next to you, individually, no brothers and sisters mixed in the lines. I hope we know that, okay? Brothers in one spot and sisters in another spot. But if the person next to you, let's say, likes to touch the heels, you know where it's coming from. I'm not a heel toe. I don't want anyone to touch my toes. It's just a cultural thing. So I'm not one of those people. but I understand where it's coming from. But if we overdo it and then we end up praying like this, okay, then we've gone the wrong way. We've took a left turn and we don't understand the text and the context, and we have not fulfilled the obligation that the Prophet ﷺ set before us, which is the most important thing in this topic, is to stand in a straight line. Okay, that was like a fiqh 10 minutes. I apologize. What is the name of the basement? There were many notable attempts, and I know all of you were using AI, because I know none of you know this, and this is to show you that AI doesn't know squat when it comes to this stuff. The word in Islamic law used for the basement is a dihliz or a dahliz, with a fatha or a kasra. A dahliz or a dihliz. So they talk about fana al-masjid, the open area of the mosque, the courtyard, or a dihliz, a basement or an underground part, etc. And the reason I asked the question is I knew that you weren't going to answer. I'm not going to buy you guys a cup of coffee. I know that. No.
This is an Islamic word, but we have this word in the
No, it's in the Mu'jam. It's in the Mu'jam, but sometimes there's a linguistic meaning, and then the fuqaha, they take it and they give it a specific meaning. Like salah. Salah means dua. If you go to a Christian Arab, they'll say, one time I was with some priests, Arab priests, and we were all wearing jackets, so they assumed that I was a priest too. So the lady came, she said, oh, ya abuna, ya abuna, oh my father, please, so-and-so died, sallinna ya abuna, sallinna ya abuna, oh pray for us, to me. I said, rahimahullah. You know. So salah in the Arabic language means dua. But in the context of Islam, salah means what we're doing here. So we have taken the linguistic meaning and we have given it a specific technical meaning. So the word for basement is dihliz. Okay. Tonight is the night of the 17th of Ramadan. And on the night of the 17th, we pause and we salute the veterans that fought in the Battle of Badr. The 17th of Ramadan is the anniversary of the Battle of Badr. As we said before, this is the most consequential, one of the most consequential events in early Islamic history. And the only thing I really want to say about that is the following, is imagine if you did something that was so important, was so great, was so significant, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told you you can do whatever you want for the rest of your life, because you get a free pass. That's the reward that Allah ta'ala gave the people, that the 313 that fought in the Battle of Badr. And the Sahaba for us are not one block of people. There are different groups. You know, there's the Muhajirun and the Ansar. And then there are also the veterans of Badr, the veterans of Uhud. There are the people that did the Bay'ah and Aqaba, so on. There are different classes of Sahaba. Of that pyramid of the Sahaba, this is amongst the highest. Maybe the only thing higher would be, you know, the family of the Prophet ﷺ for obvious reasons. But this is the highest of that pyramid of the Sahaba. That Hatim ibn Abi Balta'a radiallahu anhu, who was one of the veterans, just to show you the significance, the veterans of Badr, when he heard that the Quraysh were going to come and invade Medina, this was before the Battle of the Ditch, he was not a person from a very big family. So he was concerned about his family in Mecca, so he wanted to send them a letter. Sorry, not the Battle of the Ditch. This was before the conquest of Mecca. He wanted to send them a letter so that they could be protected. And through revelation, the Prophet ﷺ found out. Now, if somebody took a state secret that we were about to invade another country and then told somebody else in that other country, that's treason. That's not a bad thing. That's the worst thing that you can do. That's treason. Every culture, every religion says this is a treasonous act. Through revelation, the Prophet ﷺ knew that this was going to happen. Anyway, to make a long story short, they intercepted the letter, and then he went to Hatim. He said, Hatim, what are you doing? And he said, you know, Ya Wallahi, Ya Rasul, I did not do this out of disbelief, but I did this because I'm worried about my family. We're a small family, etc. And of course, the Sahaba wanted to execute him. And it was at this moment that the Prophet said, what are you saying? This is a man who fought in the Battle of Badr. Maybe Allah looked at the people, glanced at the veterans of the Battle of Badr and said, do whatever you want for the rest of your life, you are forgiven. This is how great this act was, how significant this event was. Everything, literally everything was on the line at the Battle of Badr. Islam itself, belief in Allah Ta'ala Himself was in jeopardy. And the fact that we are able to stand here and hear the Quran and pray and fast all of these centuries later, all of that is in the scale of the good deeds of the people who fought in the Battle of Badr to protect La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So think about that a little bit today, tonight and tomorrow, inshallah. And I think that's enough for me tonight. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Mawlana Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam.